Okay guys, not sure if you can hear me. I'm just looking through some of the content here. Let's see. Okay, looks like we're live. Excellent, excellent. Alright. Now, sorry about the previous video. There was technical issues, so we're just going to go ahead and straight into this video, guys. So the goal here is to go over some of the most information that you can get in terms of the value with credit, right, with your personal credit. So this is a complete transformation series. The reason why we're doing this is because I want to give you guys insights on some of the most important factors when it comes to your personal credit and what you need to do, unlike the traditional guys out there who are teaching you otherwise. What you need to do to really stand apart, to take advantage of what you have in your own financial circumstances, and essentially give you the 360-degree credit journey and what to expect when you get started with this. So our first objective is to go over what a disastrous credit journey looks like. Now, most of you guys were already familiar with with credit itself and what are some of the tools and things that you can do to take advantage of credit. You guys have, of course, learned some of the keys in terms of like what's a successful credit profile look like. Technically, if you've gone through some of my videos, you already know that credit itself can be engineered in many different ways, but it always serves a greater purpose. But before we actually get into the actual inclination of what a perfect credit profile looks like, we need to understand the roots of what a disastrous credit journey looks like, because most of you guys are not just coming across my channel because you decided to search on Google Tarafdar or on YouTube. You were probably looking for some information in relations to some of the challenges that you have with your credit already, right? So if that's the case, then what we need to understand is how can we make it easier for us to analyze what a disastrous journey looks like in contrast to what a typical journey should be like when it comes to the perfect way of tackling your credit objectives, right? So here's what a disaster looks like. And the reason I say this with confidence is because a lot of people that I know personally, part of my clients, the base that I serve, this is the exact journey that they're following or have followed, unfortunately. Okay, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because they're trapped in old ways of doing things. They're trapped in creating profiles that are not really helping them long term. It doesn't adhere to a wealth standard. So our goal here is to create a structure to first understand what a disaster looks like when it comes to credit profile. And then the second objective is to create a structure where we know how to do it the right way, the proper way. Okay, so individuals pay thousands of dollars to restore their credit, adding a luster of primary accounts, and we know some of these. Sometimes you pay, sometimes you can just do it yourself, and then even spending a lot more money on authorized accounts, right? Unauthorized accounts. And this is bad because what ends up happening is then you finally get the funding that you think you want. And I say think, it's because it's not really planned out the way it's supposed to be. A lot of people misunderstand the concept that, look, when you get access to funding, it's a temporary thing. It's not cash, right? So you still owe that money back. But what ends up happening is now once you have it, and it's dead, it has a certain interest rate, sometimes 0% depending on the promotion. But now you have to spend thousands of dollars to pay a fee, especially for those guys out there that are actually giving you this whole program. And then what ends up happening is that leads you to having at least a lot of debt to start with, and now you start with, from day one, funding that you have access to all of a sudden with an immediate anchor on your financial capacity. And what I mean by immediate anchor is now you have debt that you have to carry as soon as you get the funding. And that's terrible because now you have let's say if you have 100K, let's assume that person charged you $7,000, okay, or $10,000. That's a lot of money for you to spend right away on debt that you possibly just got. And quite honestly, you spend a lot of money getting there. So it's not the real cost, right? The real cost is a lot more expensive because you spend money on primaries, you spend money on AUs, you spend money on fixing it. And you think that this is the fastest way to go from your financial circumstances to getting ahead and building wealth. But that's not the reality. What you've just done is you're basically now hooked to a parasite because you started your journey that way. That's the wrong way to start a journey, right? That's the wrong way to start a journey because now you're basically putting yourself in trouble for no reason, and that's not necessarily the healthiest thing, right? That's a disaster. So here's what a typical successful credit journey should look like, right? So we talked about the bad part. We talked about how you spent thousands of dollars to get all these type of situations, primaries, AUs, and then get funding, and then on top of that you got to spend a couple thousand in backhand fees, which, by the way, we talked in another video about some of the dangers of that. But here's what a successful journey should typically look like, right? It all starts with education, right? So you're starting with education, and then you're expanding your knowledge horizon to evaluate your possible opportunities. See, a lot of people start their credit journey thinking, my goal is to get funding, max out my funding capability, go out there, get amazing credit score, and then basically blow up my capacity and remove those what we call inquiries, and then just keep at it, build that stack up, right? One day what's going to happen is you're going to have emergency. And I'm just giving you an example from a different perspective, right? Like, I want you to think in my head and how I think on some of the clients that I discuss with. And guys, I come from experience in terms of the Wall Street arena, where I had to do our debt arbitrage for clients who are about to lose their homes. Okay, so take my perspective when I tell you this seriously. So all of a sudden you have a perfect credit score, right? Let's assume because of these AUs, primaries, you spend money on repair, removing those inquiries, maxing out your cards so you can get 200 to 300K in credit cards, right? And then all of a sudden an emergency hits. You're going to swipe that card like there's no tomorrow, right? The problem with that is, yes, you do have the money, and you think that you're delaying the gratification or let's say the obligation, for instance, right, that you're going to pay it later. But the risk to that is, if you don't, first of all, your file was engineered, right? So it's something that you created by paying and building up. The second thing is, now you don't have the creative financial capacity. What I mean by creative is, now you're going to wipe your cards because you have access to that. But that's the danger of it. What's beyond that is, now it's like a lot of money, which is not even yours. You have high interest on it, and it's an immediate obligation that you're anchored to, that you owe, right? And it's a stress on your financial capability. But that ingenuity, the financial ingenuity, the creativity is gone from you, because now you're dependent on that. And then what's going to happen is, you're going to have that infinite loop, which we talk about. It's coming back to the same circumstance over and over again. And you're now dependent on this parasite, what we call credit repair, right? On helping you solve your problems, because you'll keep a small amount for safekeeping reasons, possibly, just to come back and do the whole program over and over again. What it does, it's basically getting in and interfering with a lot of people's capability to borrow down the road. So that's wrong, right? First of all, the whole engineered file is not who you are. It is something you paid for. Who you are is that person with the credit that you want to enhance, because you need to educate yourself and advise yourself on how you can empower to take the personal credit seriously, so you can change. So you can create that number, the 800 score or 780 score, by taking the right steps, right? And this channel is designed to give you those right steps. So a lot of people start their journey in the wrong way, and then they pay somebody lots of money, and that person knows for a fact that you're not deserving of this, but they'll do it because it's money in their pocket. And result is, who is it hurting the most, right? There's two people that get hurt in this type of fake, fictitious, disastrous journey the most. The first is you as a customer. Absolutely, you get hurt the most. But the second type of individual that get hurt, and it's an institution, right? It's these financial institutions that are in good faith extending you credit based on an engineered fraud, that they have no clue that you've gone through the process of adding AUs, primaries, and engineering a credit restoration and removing those hard inquiries by paying thousands of dollars to some of these gurus who, by the way, have no interest in your financial well-being. Because every single step, you want to talk to them, call them, pay them. You want to pick up the phone, pay them, right? You want to think about your credit, pay them. What real financial value are they really adding, aside from financial stretch in your pocket and making them money so that they can sustain on your dime? There's no financial value there. The real financial value starts with yourself, your family, thinking about your journey, asking the right questions to get to know you better. Because again, we're problem solvers here. Okay, we're not pickpocketing you just to get as much as we can, because we have a system that works, that we know for a fact that it's a parasite. You're going to come back to us because you screwed up again. That's not how it works, right? So you have to feel empowered to take personal credit seriously and position yourself to take the task that's required to fix it. That's very critical, right? Be considerate about your financial capability, because at the end of the day, you have to create a game plan to steer clear of past performance habits, right? Because at the end of the day, there are certain things that you've possibly gone through, okay? You might have hurt yourself in the process. You guys might have, somehow come across a lot of money. But at the end of the day, what happened was you didn't have the education on how to use it. It's not your fault, okay? I'm not saying you guys are responsible. I'm saying the environment that you choose is what's going to determine the outcome of your life, essentially, right? So you have to choose an environment and create that, by the way. If you don't have a choice, you can create a financial environment that can actually give you quite a bit of advantage in terms of the financial capability, the education, and all these type of great things, right? And you have to be committed to change that, okay? So when it comes to credit restoration, you have to have a singular focus in mind, and that is to build wealth and relationships. Those are the two primary goals that you have to focus on. No matter what anybody else says or they do, at the end of the day, okay, those are the two primary goals, and I'd say wealth and relationships, singular focus, right? That's what you absolutely need to do. Now, most people may not like what I'm saying because it's not a shortcut for them, because they want to itch that instant gratification, and I'm not providing them the solution to their itch. I'm not here for feel good and the motivational garbage that these gurus feed on thousands of dollars from your pocket on a year-to-year basis to build their empires on. I'm not doing that. Other means of businesses, and there's ways that we can do things that bring us together closer to the journey of building wealth that we can tackle on together as a group, right? That's why I call it group systems, so that you guys can empower yourself, take the knowledge, the education, learn the systems, and then be confident on how to fix this yourself without depending on individuals, right? So that's the key here. So how do you get started, right? So let's get a little bit technical. A lot of people want to know exactly what's the process on fixing your credit the right way. What are some of the things that you can do? So the first thing is, you guys learned about my 3 strategies. We talked about the PI minimizer technique, the item anchoring method, and the 15-day power surge. But let's get a bit technical, Now, one of those things, and by the way, guys, I see it in the live stream that you guys have some questions. I will definitely answer your questions, okay? We're going to go through the presentation, and we definitely are going to go through the questions. So don't worry, I'll guide you guys, okay? I'm here to help you guys. But let's finish this together, right? So the PI minimizer technique. So there's a case study that I'm going to go through that just recently happened with a customer, right? So they tried to get rid of those personal identifiers. Now, here's the thing, right? When you're doing personal identifiers and you had no luck, it's because in the past you may have disputed an item that is anchored to that identifier. For example, let's say you had a collection account or some charge-off debt that was related to that first and last name that you're trying to remove, or something like that, right? Or some address that you tried to remove, or some phone number. Due to the fact that in the application process where they submit the format of the AUD during a dispute process, they input data, right? There's a formatting standard. So they input data and they put that information in the previous personal identifier that you have affiliated with that account. So even if your journey is to start with the PI minimizer technique, which I tell everybody to, the problem is in the past you may have disputed that, and that is why you're having a challenge trying to remove it, right? So the alternative to that is you have to notarize that, your PI minimizer technique. Okay, so what you do is you go out there and you put a list of information that you want to tackle. And by the way, guys, take a snapshot of your credit report and just highlight it, because if you have an image attachment instead of text, it might work better, right? Because at the end of the day, it forces the bureaus to take on essentially looking at that information on a serious level. You get the person, human being involved instead of the Metro 2 Oscar guys, right? So what you do is you notarize your PI minimizer technique, and then what you've done now is you've created substantiated and undisputable evidence, right? So now it says, this is my first and last name, pretty much, right? All the rest are not pertaining to me, and they are injurious to my credit report. They're erroneous, it's not right. And now you submit the PI minimizer technique. And by the way, don't feel afraid if they're not removing some of those identifiers to jump on to the 15-day power surge right away. That's another technique, right? A lot of people wait until they have to remove those negatives. Not really. You can actually start with the PI minimizer technique, and they're saying, no, this belongs to you. Okay, we're not going to remove it. But you can actually jump onto the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau with the notarized document and say, look, they're not removing my information. And then that can hurt them. So, there's ways to do that, but you have to try, until you get those items basically standardized. And the question I always get is, does notarizing your first attack strategy work? Now, it varies, right? Time to time it varies. It may not. But here's the thing. What you want to do is you want to create substantiated, undisputable evidence. That's pretty much your goal. No matter what you do in credit, especially restoration and enhancement, your journey should always be to do by right. Like essentially build and stack things that will be in your favor all the time, okay? So that's the critical component here. And once you've completed that minimizer strategy, once you finish that, what you want to do is you want to start with the item anchoring methods, right? Like you want to start attacking the items after the point, because now what happens is you open up a doorway, you shatter what was, the barrier between you and your efforts to start taking on those negatives, and now you're able to do it the right way, okay? So yes, notarizing does work. You're basically creating substantiated documentation evidence, but at the end of the day, you still want to tackle on whatever those negatives are. The next step is, do not expect overnight results. A lot of people get the wrong idea of saying, well, I want to fix this. I have a very short period of time. I want to take care of some of these things. There's a lot of people who will say otherwise. And now I understand, that's their business model, whatever it is, but that's a false reality, right? And that's a lot of people are fed that false reality. But the truth is, it does take a little bit of time. If you want to do it properly, you want to get the results that you're looking for, it does take a little bit of time. It doesn't happen overnight. And if it did happen overnight, well, I bet you that it's possibly not going to last. That's another problem that a lot of people don't realize is anything that's too good to be true, especially when it comes to the financial institutions, banking system, the credit, the laws, items that are basically discharged or whatever it is during a short period of time, it doesn't last. Okay, and if it does, then by fluke, big time, which by the way, the systems are over inundated with a lot of disputes, so it may happen, but all the better if you do it the proper way and follow the protocols that are necessary to protect you from the get-go. That's the goal here, right? We're not trying to shortcut anything. So going on to our next slide, before we begin all the strategy, right? And this is something that you have to personally pay attention to. Have you created an accountability plan, right? And what I mean by accountability plan is, have you created something that will give you some sort of direction in terms of how to handle your credit restoration journey, right? Have you analyzed your credit reports, up to track what are some of the evidences of erroneous and inaccurate reporting? So a lot of people don't do that, right? What if they do is oh, this is negative, I'm going to put it on a section 609 template, for example, or a dispute template of any sort. I'm not trying to attack anybody here, but this is wrong, and I'm going to try to dispute that right off the get-go. Now, that can work at times, but it's not really evidence, right? It's just negative item. What you want to do is you want to pinpoint the evidence. And in the next slide, I'm going to show you guys what are some of the things you can look out for. But keep that in mind, right? So first, accountability plan, where you want to be financially, why you want to fix your credit. Take the time to really deep dive in your needs, because at the end of the day, sometimes you want something, but that's probably not something that you need, right? So the accountability plan will definitely help you understand that. Have you analyzed your credit reports, to track those type of erroneous and inaccurate reports, right? What have you done in the past, essentially, right? Because, here I see this a gentleman who posted on the live chat. He says, I've been trying to fix my credit for 5 years now with no luck. Now, the thing is, like, what was done in the past? What did you try? What are some of the strategies that you've tried? Have you tried all the type of strategies that I deployed in my videos? What are some of the alternative strategies that you try? Who have you gone through? What have they done for you? Et cetera, et cetera. These are the things you have to really understand and deep dive into understanding, because it's essential, right? What were some of the responses that you got based on your previously disputed items? What did they say? Did they say it's frivolous? Did they say, oh, we've already done this in the past? Did they say, no, the creditor or the data furnisher has certified that this information is accurate? And keyword certified, that's the language that has changed over the past few years, okay? So keep that in mind. Once you have all that ready, what you want to do is you want to develop your AS profile. Now, AS profile, what it is, it's my vernacular. It means attack strategy profile, right? And the way you can only do that is by understanding the history, your current reporting format, how it's reported, and that requires you, of course, to deep dive into analyzing the reports the right way, right? And then you have to create a future projection on it. And the way it works is very simple, right? Historically, they've said all this, so you have the evidence, you have all these type of things, right? And then basically what you're doing is you're creating a strategy that requires you to deep dive into the report, to analyze them, and then create a profile, right, that considers that their past. You can snapshot those type of information and images, and then bring it to light with the bureaus. And now you can actually do using that information, the PI minimizer technique, the item anchoring techniques, and all these type of things that you need to move ahead. But your AS profile, which is your attack strategy profile, is a must. But how do you determine an attack strategy profile? Well, you absolutely need to have an accountability plan, and you have to analyze the report, and you have to know what was the outcome of your previous disputes in the past. Unless otherwise you've gone through all that, you cannot really create an AS profile, because you have nothing to work on or nothing to base your profile on, right? So that's a technique that a lot of people don't describe. And clearly, with everything that I'm trying to show you guys here, it all depends on a customized outcome, right? It depends on what you got in terms of a response, what happened, and all these type of situations, all right? So just, keep that in mind. And by the way, this will be replayed, so you guys can actually snapshot this afterward or pause it to take your time to write it down. So let's go over an example, right? Let's go over an example. So in your accountability plan, which we talked about, right? What you want to do is you actually want to highlight your financial status. And you have to be honest with yourself. Nobody's going to look at this, right? It's just yourself. But what I mean by analyzing financial profile is what kind of income do you have right now? Realistically, right? Do you foresee that going up? And if so, what can you rapidly pay down, especially when in terms of like a high interest debts, etc., to increase your cash flow? Because with more money in your pocket, the more you can do. Essentially, that's the end game. How quickly can you do that, right? And then what you want to do is you analyze your reports. Now you have to see if they actually made any changes or modifications. Now this gets tricky because a lot of people say, well, no, they said it's been disputed and I can't change it. It's been verified. Okay, look at your past report, the one you based your attack strategy on, or let's say your dispute on. What was in it, the snapshot of that account, if you have access to it, of course. Historically, you should, especially Credit Check, all these guys, they have archived reports, so you can go back to it and verify, or call the credit reporting agencies. And here's the trick: you can actually request a report on the date of 2017, what the report looked like, and they should technically have an archived version of your report. Okay, but what you do is you analyze that and see what exactly some of the changes or modifications they made. Right? Were the payments correct? The payment amounts? Were the balances correct? Are the limits? Do they make sense? Are the terms making sense? Right? Is the account type all correct across all three reporting agencies, by the way? Right? So that's how you analyze. You have to take your time, really look at what are some of the things that you can tackle on, what are some of the things that don't make sense at all, right? And then just basically go to essentially tackle those type of items and take care of that for you. Now, here's the thing: when you create your AS profile, you have to keep the idea of what is some of the goals that you have in mind, right? What are some of the goals in mind? So you have to understand that in your previous dispute, what are some of the strategies that you used? Why did you think that they failed? And we have to be very, very tactical about that. Now, sometimes, of course, it's just because they have automated dispute verifications happening. It's not your fault, but end result is, it is something that you have to do. So let's move on to some of the questions that individuals have, right? So here I see that, and this is not the end of the presentation, guys. I'm just going over some of the questions based on the information I just presented. So a gentleman under the name of I Don't Buy Bull in the live chat says, to my understanding, the bureaus got the info from LexisNexis, SageStream, and those other outlets to determine how to handle disputes. Not all the time, right? So I'm gonna correct this myth. Now, it is possible that they look at that information to determine the funding that you get, the customer profile risk, which we call the CPR, right? The customer profile risk. And that's the banking vernacular that a lot of us guys use. But the customer profile risk is essentially based on the third-party bureaus that provide aggregated data to determine the likelihood of that person defaulting. The qualification of funding is what's looked at, to determine underwriting decisions, what that person would, if they would get the funding or not. The real way of determining disputes and stuff like that is based on evidence trails and archived information on the Metro 2 format on the eOscar itself. So if you go to eOscar, it says, accurate, online, complete, accurate reporting, right? But we know it's false because a lot of credit bureaus have a lot of erroneous data and they're not really representing your information the proper way. They're misrepresented. So, LexisNexis, SageStream, ID Analytics, ARS, Trust Factor, Credo Logic, among other individuals, these third-party repositories and data bureaus essentially provide risk profiles on customers to determine whether or not they qualify for a positive underwriting decision. And if so, what kind of risk is the financial institution during their quarter in terms of credit capability are willing to take on you as a customer, right? So they have thousands of these databases. So that's how they determine underwriting. Now, in terms of disputing information on your personal and all these type of things, they don't have to necessarily depend on that information. The only thing that can deter the way you get success with your PL minimizer technique is, yes, you're right, these third-party bureaus can have somewhat information related to it. But if you're challenging that and you're saying that doesn't belong to me, the only things that they can look at those third-party bureaus to see is if any type of information was added to those individual bureaus in terms of that information. Because at the end of the day, these third-party bureaus are feeding the credit bureaus information. They're not going out there and fetching it, right? They're being fed that data. So your personal identifiers may have somewhat of an effect with those third-party bureaus, but at the end of the day, the primary is the three main bureaus, or the FIR, including Innovis. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, we talked about the group systems, right? Like in the beginning of the presentation, I said there's a group system. So what happened was, in the recent history with a lot of my customers and individuals that I've been dealing with, they're saying, Ali, can you come down and I have a group of people, can you teach us on what to do in terms of fixing the credit, and tell us exactly what are some of the strategies that you would deploy, right? And I'm more than open to share that, but at the end of the day, it's something that is more of a personalized premium level of attention. So what I've done is I've developed a program for individuals within different cities to get together and participate in a full day mastermind session. And what the mastermind session does is essentially people learn my entire system, how to enhance their credit, source funding, because at the end of the day, credit has some sort of goal in mind. We would discuss that, right? But we're going to talk about sourcing funding programs. What are some of the funding programs that you can access and go to get access to, databases of, like, let's say, credit cards, lines of credit, et cetera, et cetera. You also learn my entire system in terms of what to do and how to tackle those items, how to analyze the report the most efficient manner, and what are some of the evidences of their misrepresenting of information and inaccuracies that you can take and use that against them, right? The other thing is, as an upside, those same individuals that are participating in this mastermind day, what they'll have is a complimentary 12 months of credit enhancement. It'll be done by me and my team. So it's not based on just you learning the information. Now you have the knowledge, but in addition to that, we'll take care of that file for you. We'll tell you exactly what we're doing and how we're going to do that, right? Plus, you, of course, get 6 months of group calls together. We'll tackle on any questions, issues, and all these type of things, right? So most people may be wondering, well, that sounds great. What happens? How do I participate? So one of the things to keep in mind is, because it is a group level education, we need a minimum of 6 people, right? These are normally held in the weekends because we want to give people time to essentially, finish their work, relax on the Friday nights, and then basically during the weekend we start our group sessions. Now, you have to bring your credit reports with you. You print it out so that we can look through it, give you all the data, share the information that's necessary and some of the negatives. So if you want to reserve, you contact me and we'll create a spot for you and reserve a seat. The current cities that I'm doing this in is New York, Philadelphia, Houston, Dallas, San Francisco, Phoenix, and Miami. I'm going to be adding more cities, but the locations essentially provided, especially in those cities, particularly where it's going to be, a week prior. So the way it works is there's a lot of different type of offices that we have. These could be virtual, these could be mixed offices with our businesses and the finance business, but we rent out a small space. And we go from that perspective to tackle on the education. So minimum of 6, it could be as high as 50. We don't want to keep it too much, right? So that's pretty much it. Now, you guys know that I released my course, the Ultimate Personal Credit Mastery. So in benefit to giving you some overview, there's 6 modules in there. Everything that you want to know about credit, you'll learn in terms of rules, procedures, requirements, compliant reporting. How to analyze your report, very detailed and thorough. You get over-the-shoulders templates done for you. You see me type it up as we discuss on the videos. Plus, you get access to a secret Facebook mastermind group. This Facebook mastermind group is very unique because you guys get to participate. It's free. It's access to those members. It's lifetime. You pay once. It's lifetime. You get templates. You get sources. You get documents. You get live videos once in a while. So all these type of great things, and you'll be saving a lot of money just by participating in the UPCM or the group coaching, hopefully when that is of your interest in the near future. So I'd like to thank you guys for participating. Now I'm going to answer some questions, okay? So I promised you guys that. So I have my live chat here. So let's start with some questions, guys. I'm going to keep this on for a bit because I want to give everybody the chance to ask me some questions, okay? So okay, so let's start with Mr. I Don't Buy Bull. Nice name, by the way. So I've been trying to fix my credit for 5 years now with no luck. No luck. Okay, so we discussed in our presentation what are some of the strategies and everything like that. But feel free to reach out to me, talk@bestcreditresources.com, and email me what you've tried so far, and I might give you some insight. And by the way, guys, I don't charge you for free consultation. Sometimes some people call me and they get the answers right away to their problem. Of course, 30 minutes is never going to fix your credit problems, but you get some sort of direction, right? And if you're interested in working with me or you want to buy my course, by all means, you can do that. But I promise you, I'll always give you guys direction. I Don't Buy Bull, please reach out to me and we can talk about that. So I answered your question about the third-party bureaus. Mr. Timothy Hall asks, when you freeze SageStream, LexisNexis, can the 3 main bureaus still access the secret bureau? If so, is it legal? So here's the thing. When you freeze that information, what you're essentially doing is you're stopping them from giving away your information to marketing companies, promotional companies, databases. Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, and Innovis, yes, they're credit bureaus, but they have other business models, including selling mailing lists to businesses, right? Including selling mailing lists to credit card companies for pre-qualifications. That's where you get these mails once in a while, right? They sell data to different companies for due diligence. So aside from being a credit reporting agency, they're also a marketing company, right? They're a catalyst of providing information, financial information, to potential financial services company that want to offer their products or services to consumers. Let's not forget that, okay? So as that falls into this category, what they do is LexisNexis and all those guys, what they do is they don't have to necessarily, communicate with them. They have archived information about clients on the data bureaus, right? On the three main credit bureaus, sorry. Because they have archived information, they don't have to rely on the new stuff. They can pull it off of the old stuff. But in most cases, because they want to keep it up to date and accurate, they have to pull those bureaus. And because you frozen suppress them, in most cases they're not able to. So what they end up doing is the success factor of your challenge or dispute or question is a lot higher. Okay, so you'll be able to do it, successfully. So keep that in mind. Okay, so when it comes to credit reporting challenges and fixing your reports, when you freeze them, it's positive for you. But when it comes to, let's say, a company's trying to buy data for about you or offer you some promos and all these type of things, usually Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, and Innovis already have a marketing list that they sell, and they archive that once every quarter, or they refresh that when necessary, and then they sell your information, right? So just keep that in mind. If you don't want to participate in that, if you don't want to get offers and all that, you can actually contact each of these bureaus and request an opt-out, okay, of marketing promotions and all these type of things. So just keep that in mind. That's something that you want to do if you're not interested in any type of mailing service and all that. So, I hope that answers your question. Now, another question I have is, you're in New York City. Okay, so Mr. iBubble, just reach out to me, talk@bestcreditresources.com. Reach out to me. If you're interested, we can talk about reserving a spot for you. And then, people who are in those cities, we can put together a mastermind group for you guys, and I can come down and teach you what you need, and of course, give you the resources that you need and handle your files for you guys. So, do you guys have any other questions for me that may potentially be useful for our audiences here? Feel free to write them down. Oh, cool. Okay. So what's the best way to remove bankruptcy? Timothy Hell asks. That's one of those things that you have to really take a multiple tier approach. It's going to take a few, but definitely you want to start with freezing those third-party bureaus. We talked about that. You also want to basically, PI minimizer, man. Like, PI minimizer technique is important, because at the end of the day, that personal identifier could be misrepresenting information, right? And it's not up to date, or it's not accurate. And just by simply, the first step is freeze, suppress and freeze those third-party bureaus, right? The second part is PI minimizer technique, notarized, right? And the third is the 15-day power search, because public record is essentially information on your name. It's related to PI, personal information. It has nothing to do with account information. Because if the bankruptcy had to do with account information, they would list all the information of the accounts that were discharged or part of the bankruptcy. In most cases, the individual accounts themselves will change the status in the reports, but usually, the bankruptcy itself has something to do with public records, and that is information about our personal information, which is your personal related identifiers. So freeze them first, okay, like the third-party bureaus. I would even go as far as freezing the 3 bureaus, right? And then tackle on the PI minimizer technique, notarized, and if nothing's removed, do the 15-day power search. And then if they still haven't removed it, then you kind of need to go a little bit more in depth in terms of analyzing and what are some of the things. You can actually learn this whole process in the Ultimate Personal Credit Mastery if you want to take it to the next level, right? But those basic techniques should essentially help you out. If they don't, then feel free to explore further. But that's definitely a very, very good question. I hope that helps and answers your question, Mr. Timothy. Do you guys have any other questions for me to help clarify some of the things for the audiences here? I'll just scroll through and look through that. Let's see. Okay. No problem, Timothy. No problem. All right. So I guess that's it, man. That's all it is, guys. So I just wanted to take my time and present this data, different perspective. Definitely some things that you probably won't learn typically in other people's channels, I think. So okay, somebody has a question. Don't worry, I'm still here. I'm still here. So feel free to ask. So keep this in mind. Analyze, have an accountability plan, understand what worked, what didn't, and create your AI's profile, which is attack strategy profile. And I just showed you guys how to do that. So go through them, take your time to do it the right way, and really dig deep into creating a strategy that is customized and will work for you, and be realistic, right? That's our goal here, is to create realistic outcomes. Okay. So I'm waiting for that one last question from Mr. I Don't Bible. Anybody else want to jump in and ask questions? By all means, feel free. I'm here for a little bit. Okay, so how long does a repossession stay on a report? That's a question missed by Mr. I Don't Bible. Okay, great. You guys are asking a series of questions. Great. So, okay, how long does a repossession stay on the report? Well, technically speaking, it could be 4, 5, 7 years. It depends. It can be renewed. It could be third-party aggregators resubmitting recent data. It's really, this type of information is not necessarily something that that has a specific timeline. Usually, it's not going to be like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, right? But if you see it like further than a certain time limit, you have to keep in mind repossession started off and originated as a debt, right? So the reason they repossessed your car is because a debt was owed. So what you want to do is you start with that person or the company that owes, that you owe the debt to, or whatever, it could be Santander, it could be other car financing companies. And then what you want to do is you want to tackle those accounts first. Once they take care of that, what you can do is, you can say this repossession was affiliated with an account that you have evidently removed. Here's the snapshot of what you said was removed. Please remove this repo because it is affiliated with it, and I clearly have no idea who they are, etc., right? Use their own tools against them. Does that make sense? So if you're having challenge or if a repo's there, go with the original creditor that posted that repo in the first place because that debt is owed to them. Tackle that debt and then come back to the repo. And it's like an anchoring technique, right? That repo is affiliated with this. It's clearly not mine. Here's the evidence of you removing it. By the way, Mr. Bureau, I don't know why it's still there. Okay, so keep that in mind. Not a problem. Okay, so what is the best way to remove the student loan payments when you have tried, even with the CFPB? That's a good question, Quinn. So technically, that's stuff I teach in the Ultimate Personal Credit Mastery, but I'll give you a strategy just because I want you guys to get the value. Okay. One of the things that you have to keep in mind with the late payments is you have to go with the original creditor. Some of these guys are federal agencies, etc., but when you see these late payments, what you want to do is you want to tackle it based on Fair Credit Billing Act, right? You have to say, well, what's the first date of the late? What was it? What was the amount the late was for? Why is the amount of debt this? How is it accounted for? Ask accounting questions, right, to the balance sheet. And don't worry about templates or anything like that. Just ask a bunch of questions. Be like, here, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so in this company, and you're not taking it to the bureaus, guys, okay? You're sending a copy of the letter you're writing to the student loan company to the bureaus, but you're not tackling with the bureaus directly. Got it? And then you say, Mr. So-and-so, here's what you're saying, that I have a few late payments. Can you give me an appropriate accounting for it as in accordance to the Fair Credit Billing Act? Because for you to report any type of data, whether it be misleading or inaccurate, is injurious to my character, my ability to borrow, and there are severe penalties with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for not adhering to those rules. So can you please give me an accounting breakdown of where you say it's late? Exactly, give me the highlights, the details, and then take that information they give you. Sometimes they're successful in providing you the complete info. If they're not, then if it's missing, then what you can do is you can tackle that with the CFPB and say, information's still missing. I've been requesting those documents and they failed to provide it. And here's the evidence. And if they actually successfully send you a copy of those statements and bills, take that information and break it down with their report and see what are some of the things that are basically not matching. And take your time to tackle it based on that perspective. Usually you'll have success, but if you're not, then you'll probably want to do a different alternative strategy. But that's something you can cover in the course. But again, I hope that kind of answers your question there. Timothy asks, what's a good credit card funding site? Now, there's a list of companies that I provided on one of my videos. It's called No Backend Fees in Credit Card Funding. You can actually check out that video. There's quite a bit. Now, nowadays, there's a lot more sites that are added, and keep in mind, these are all affiliate sites, right? So they get money by promoting you something. But you'll have data that's like available in terms of where to review those credit card companies and all these type of things. Now, you also might want to consider, some of the banks, that are nearby, credit unions. They're very friendly community banks, and contact them. Contact them, looking at what are the current promotional rates. Read up on that. But there's a video that I put up. You know what I'll do? I'll actually put that video up on the comment section, or edit the description of this video after it's done. But there's a video there. It says no credit card backend funding, etc., etc. It's one of those videos. If you look through my channel and search it, no backend fees or anything like that, you'll have a list of details that of the sites and how to do it and the strategies to get the funding and how to freeze this information. All that's provided. So no worries, Timothy. I hope that helps. And that's pretty much it, guys. I think that I hopefully answered, if not all your questions, most of it. I don't think I'm missing anybody here. But yeah, guys, it'll be great if you wanted to join the Ultimate Personal Credit Mastery. If you join, then you have the access to the mastermind group. It's a lifetime membership. You don't have to pay every month. But once you have that in the course, what you have is all the details that are necessary for you to tackle on your own, your personal credit, how to analyze, the questions you can ask, some live streams in the actual group itself that are different from the stuff that you see here on YouTube. Of course, a lot more detailed and to the point. Some unique strategies and all these great things. Now, if you want to participate in the group thing, you reach out to me and we can organize a get-together. Minimum 6 people. Keep that in mind. All right. So we need 6 people to get into this group thing. And if you guys have any other questions in relations to either the group thing, the UPCM, or in general that you need my help with, talk at bestcreditresources.com. You're encouraged to go through the course. As always, it's something that I released for you guys, for your knowledge, and trust me, it's way underpriced, right? So it's something that you want to take advantage of as soon as possible, right? So with that said and done, I hope I answered most of you guys' questions. This is Ali Tarafdar, your guide and mentor as always. Looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Bye for now.